Welcome to another episode of Sounds Reasonable. I am your host, Dr. Brad, and I'm joined in the production of our weekly show by Tim and Tracy. We are all members of the Free Thought community, and our Sounds Reasonable website can be found on Facebook. Now, before we get started today, I just want to make a quick programming note. We will be taking next week off for summer vacations. So our next SR episode will be on Sunday, August 23rd. Do you experience frequent irrational thoughts, a pervasive belief in a divine skydive, an insatiable urge to read horoscopes, perform spells, speak in tongues, or pray? Fortunately, you are now listening to the cure for these ailments. Sounds reasonable. This show is dedicated to bringing you, the listener, the latest news in free thought, science, logic and reason, and politics and religion. And of course, we encourage you to share your thoughts with us after each episode by posting comments and asking questions on our Facebook page. What is free thought? What does it mean to be a free thinker? The dictionary definition is a person who forms opinions about religion based on reason, independent of tradition, authority, or established belief. Here's Christopher Hitchens' working definition. Our belief is not a belief. Our principles are not a faith. We do not rely solely upon science and reason because these are necessary rather than sufficient factors. But we distrust anything that contradicts science or outrages reason. We may differ on many things, but what we respect is free inquiry, open-mindedness, and the pursuit of ideas for their own sake. We will now move on to our science news segment, and remember that the scientific mind is one that allows its perceptions of reality to be constrained by good evidence and good argument. Just when you thought we knew everything about sexual reproduction in animals, along comes a novel and previously undescribed means by which certain deep sea fish do it. Tim has our science news segment this week. So Tim, tell us about deep sea sex.
Hey, thanks, Dr. Brad. As Dr. Brad mentioned in our science segment today, I'll be talking about mating habits. Not humans, not bonobos, which, by the way, if you don't know about bonobos, you need to do a little research on them. Very interesting. Today, I'll be discussing the strange mating habits of the deep sea anglerfish. You may not be familiar with the anglerfish, but I bet most of you have watched Finding Nemo. And if you did, you saw an anglerfish. So let me share my screen here real quick. Okay. So there's a little shot from Finding Nemo when Nemo and Dory meet up with.
I'm not seeing the image.
Not seeing the image. Okay.
There we go.
Okay, now you see it. All right. So yeah, a little shot of Nemo and Dory when they meet up with the anglerfish. And that anglership fish you see there, and then you see here actually photographs, those are female anglerfish. And again, they have this little lure that's dangling out from a modified dorsal fin, which is bioluminescent and is used to attract fish. Okay. Are you still seeing that shot of the picture there or not?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Good. So there are about 170 known species of the deep sea anglerfish. They can be found in all oceans at depths down to 14,436 feet, but mainly found between 1,300 and 6,000 feet. And then like we see there in the picture, the females are well known for having a bioluminescent lure that they use to attract prey. Okay, so the next slide, here we see, should see male and female. So typically, females typically are 2.5 feet long, but can reach as close to 4 feet, over 3 feet long. And then, let's see on the right there, then the much smaller males may reach up to 6 inches. So quite a size disproportionate as far as sizes in the males and females. Deep sea anglerfish are arguably display the most dramatic mating habits in the animal kingdom. In some species, males only temporarily attach to females and then part ways. The deep sea anglerfish, Sertalis hobelini, or hobelini, also known as Coyer's deep sea anglerfish, does not spawn, does not copulate, or do anything a fish would ordinarily do to mate. Instead, the male, just a few inches long, performs what has been described as sexual parasitism. So you may be wondering, what is sexual parasitism? We'll start our sexual parasitism discussion talking about the male. So the male doesn't have a lure, so it feeds on whatever bits of organic material he can find. When the male reaches sexual maturity, their digestive system starts to degenerate. And so now his sole purpose is to find a mate. And the males do this using their keen sense of smell to detect the female pheromones, the female scents. Once he finds a female, he bites her and does not let go. Once he is attached to the female, he releases an enzyme that digests the skin of the female's body as well as his mouth, which causes their tissues to fuse, including their blood vessels. And now this is how he obtains his nutrients, with their fused blood vessels. Now the male's internal organs dissolve away except for his testes. So now the female has her own supply of sperm whenever she wants to reproduce. Now in some other species, the females may absorb multiple males. In some cases, up to 8 males at a time will attach. Okay, so the articles that we're going to discuss, the research information we're discussing today is coming from 2 articles. The main article is the one published in journal Science on July 30th this year by J.B. Swan et al. And the title was Immunogenetics of Sexual Parasitism, which is the article which showed the research. Now the second article I'm going to discuss was one out of the Scientist, the same day, July 30th, which was titled, "For Mates to Fuse Bodies, Some Anglerfish Have Lost Immune Genes." And I'm using most of my information from that article because I couldn't access the Science journal. So among the many mysteries surrounding the mating habits of deep sea fish, deep sea anglerfish, is an immunological one. And virtually all other adult vertebrates introducing tissues from one individual to another would provoke a powerful immune response attacking the foreign cells. So the burning question here was, why doesn't the immune system of the female anglerfish reject these parasitic males? A new genomic analysis of 13 anglerfish species published in the journal Science provides some clues. The genomes of species that temporarily or permanently fuse with their mates have undergone radical alterations of key genes that form the foundation of the adaptive or humoral immunity. In other words, the immunity that's involved in producing antibody production. This is the first known instance of vertebrates that effectively lack an adaptive immune system. So keep in mind that the adaptive immune system is responsible for a rejection of foreign tissues. In this situation, the fused male would be considered foreign tissue and he's not being rejected. Over the course of evolution, changes in genes involved in antibody production and cytotoxic T cell responses may have paved the way for the animal's strange reproductive habits. It also raises questions about how the fish defend themselves against pathogens in the deep sea. So the immunologist Thomas Boehm and his colleagues at the Max Planck Institute of Immunology and Epigenetics in Germany long awaited to know how some anglerfish species can form body fusions between individuals and set out to do analysis of the animal genomes. With the help of ichthyologist Theodore Petrich, if I'm pronouncing that right, and expert on deep sea anglerfishes at the University of Washington, the team was able to obtain tissue samples from several specimen collections. Boehm and his colleagues sequenced the DNA from 31 specimens representing 13 species of deep sea anglerfish. That included 4 species that mate by temporary attachment, 6 species that form permanent attachments and fusions, and then 3 of them in a 3 of those 6 in a 1-to-1 fashion, and 3 had multiple males that fuse with a single female. The team also included three control species from other anglerfish groups in which males never attached to the females. So the team examined a handful of well-characterized genes known to be key players in the adaptive immune response. First, they looked at genes that encoded the fish's major histone compatibility complex, MHC class 1 and MHC class 2 protein. And these are cell surface molecules that differ between individuals and enable T cells to distinguish the body's own cells from foreign ones. And it's the MHC class 1 receptors that drive cytotoxic T cells to attack foreign cells in tissue transplant settings. So interestingly, the 6 permanently attached species all showed unusual and significant alterations to their MHC genes, which were even more severe in the 3 species in which multiple males fused with each female. The researchers also found alterations in the genes encoding receptors of the cytotoxic T cells that interact with the MHC class 1 protein. In all 6 permanent attachers, 2 genes that encode such receptors were entirely missing, suggesting that dismantling of the cytotoxic reactivity of T cells might be necessary to allow different anglerfish individuals to mate. And because antibodies detected against foreign tissues are known to cause complications in patients during tissue transplants, the team also looked at certain genes that are the foundation of antibody generation. Although many of these genes seem to be intact in most of the anglerfish species, they found that the Arcata or AICDA gene, which plays an important role in creating specific antibodies, was effectively absent in all 10 species that form temporary or permanent attachments. They also found certain RAG genes, which are also involved in antibody formation, had accumulated deleterious mutations in species that mate as groups of males, where those were relatively intact in species that pair a 1-to-1 fashion, such as the C. hobolini. Overall, they found that more extreme the attachment between mates, the more extreme were the changes in the adaptive immune genes. While temporary attachment only seemed to require reduced antibody responses, permanent 1-to-1 fusions seemed to be associated also with the prevention of cytotoxic T cell function. In the case of multiple mates, this was marked by even more changes, such as reduction of antibody responses and the loss of the RAG genes. The article talked about how many scientists assume that the immune system, once established, would evolve only in one direction, towards becoming more adaptive and more specific. But it looks like you can actually lose arms of the adaptive immune system in evolutionary pressures if the evolutionary pressures are justified. In many other invertebrates, removing parts of the adaptive immune system produce drastic consequences. For example, babies born with mutations in the RAG genes are severely sick or die quickly if they don't receive treatment through bone marrow transplantation. The fact that some anglerfish are apparently getting along fine without a fully intact adaptive immune system is amazing. So how do these anglerfish defend themselves from pathogens in the deep sea? In the article, they speculated that either the fish must have evolved some other immune system entirely, or they have ways to gear up or ramp up their innate immune system, which is the immune system which involves a variety of things, like mucosal membrane, the IgA antibodies, inflammatory response, lysozyme, some of those things that help protect you from any old pathogen. So Gil Rosenthal, who's an evolutionary biologist at Texas A&M University, said he wonders what the pressures are that have driven this evolution in these anglerfish. Deep sea anglerfish are extremely sexual dimorphic. In the scientific article, he is quoted as saying, females are these nightmarish, light-bearing, fanged monsters, and the males are tiny little things with huge testes and a huge nose. The females are probably sparse in deep sea, so it's likely that the males spend a lot of time looking for them. When a male finally finds a female, it would be to his interest to stick close. If it happens that the females have conflicting interests, such as eating the males, it could set up the fish for sexual conflict. That situation could somehow lead to a genomic tug of war over the immune system. Rosenthal speculates, quote, I wouldn't be surprised if some of the wreckage of the immune genome comes from sexual conflict. It wouldn't be the first example of a trade-off between sexual behavior and immune system function. Rosenthal adds, noting that in vertebrates, testosterone can depress the immune system function and enhance male sexual displays. However, that is so much of it, it shuts down or remodeled it in deep sea anglerfish is just wild, he said. So it looks like, you know, the anglerfish truly give a new meaning to the saying, when you get married, two become one. So, so just a really amazing article.
Yeah, that is. You know, the sexual dimorphism exhibited in this species, of course, is not unique. What always comes to my mind is the black widow spider.
Right.
You know, the female is this huge spider, and the male is barely visible to the naked eye, and has to literally sneak up on the female to mate without getting eaten.
Yeah.
And oftentimes provides a meal to the female after mating.
Right.
And I think the same is true with praying mantises.
Praying mantis. Right.
Yeah, yes. If I recall.
Females are larger.
Yeah,
eat their males.
That aspect in terms of the sexual dimorphism is not unique, but yeah, the loss of the adaptive immune system is incredible. Now, of course, since we were talking about insects, the insects only have innate immunity, and they're the most successful component of the animal kingdom. So it's clear that you can get along without adaptive immunity, but you know, organisms that are as complex as vertebrates would seem to require it. You know, presumably the reason vertebrates need it is because they have longer lifespans and don't reach reproductive maturity till later, whereas insects very rapidly reach reproductive maturity and therefore don't have as much pressure to have long lifespans.
Yeah, and I guess you could think the fact that they produce so many offspring, you know, if you do lose a few out of the population because of disease, it's you know, it's maybe not as big a evolutionary pressure as it would be maybe for vertebrates and animals.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, that aspect, and then you know, the specific loss of the RAG genes.
Right.
You know, that you know, for our audience's benefit and perhaps Tracy's here, RAG genes is what gives your immune cells, in particular what we describe as T and B cells, the ability to form the diversity of receptors needed to recognize the variety of pathogens that are out there. So without those genes in humans, we call it severe combined immunodeficiency. You would lack both T and B cell immunity without those genes functioning. And so if anyone has ever seen the movie The Boy in the Bubble, or heard of the boy in the bubble. That was the disorder that he had, with severe combined immunodeficiency, and obviously was at risk of acquiring any of a number of infections that are out there. So, so it's a very dire situation to be in. So obviously these fish have evolved a means of providing themselves sufficient immunity without that.
Interesting.
Yeah. So yeah, the diversity of life is incredible, isn't it?
Right. Yeah, and they just talked about, yeah, just it's amazing just the wide diversity that we're finding, and how we I mean, don't ever think no, it's not possible, because here will come along evidence that yes, it is possible.
Yeah. So in terms of losing genes, however, that's also not unique. Have you ever heard of the bloodless Antarctic fish? They've lost hemoglobin genes,
Oh, I'm not familiar with that.
and the reason they're able to survive is because the very low temperature of the Antarctic water keeps enough dissolved oxygen around that they're able to get along without hemoglobin.
Okay.
So
Are they, as far as the size, are they kind of small, so you have a lower surface area to volume ratio?
no, I'm not sure about their size, so I don't want to throw a size out there without being sure about that. But as I recall, I've seen some pictures of those fish, and they seem to be about the size of a cod, I suppose.
Okay. Pretty good size.
So not a real small fish anyway.
Oh, right.
But
Cool.
but they're also the fish that evolved the antifreeze proteins, so that they're able to survive in very cold water,
Right.
without their tissues freezing, and in one aspect they acquired a new characteristic, and in another they lost one. So amazing what evolution can do.
Yep, it is. Okay.
All right, so I think we'll leave it there, and we'll be right back with more Sounds Reasonable.
All alive. The devil's in the detail, lingered inside. Oh, a holy crime. But how can I hide you without an alibi? It's a lover's fight without an alibi. You took my innocence. I can't wait no longer. I'm playing with the monsters. Everything that brought me alive. Though we're all like monsters, playing with the monsters. They brought me alive, but got no alibi. It's a lover's fight without an alibi. You took my innocence without an alibi.
And we're back with more Sounds Reasonable on August 9th, 2020. Individuals that sacrifice for the well-being of others are typically touted as heroes and are usually held in high regard, but not these days, especially if they disagree with the opinion of Trump and his Republican cronies. The article I'm going to discuss comes from the Talking Points memo and is titled, Fauci Says He and His Family Have Been Assigned to Security Detail Due to Serious Threats. And this article was authored by Cristina Cabrera on July 24th of this year. Dr. Anthony Fauci, one of the White House's most prominent health responders to COVID-19 and a target in President Donald Trump's attempts to downplay the pandemic, said on Thursday that he and his family have been receiving threats. I've seen a side of society that I guess is understandable, but it's a little bit disturbing, Fauci said in a podcast interview with CNN commentator David Axelrod. The doctor recalled how he had received hate mail decades ago for leading efforts at the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases to find treatment for HIV/AIDS. And as somebody who was on the front lines of a vaccine development for HIV, I can directly relate to that. Whenever we went out somewhere, we were always a little cautious to describe what it is that we were doing because we were never certain just what type of crowd or audience we were in the midst of. It's really a magnitude different now because the amount of anger, he told Axelrod, as much as people inappropriately, I think, make me somewhat of a hero, which I'm not a hero, I'm just doing my job. There are people who get really angry at thinking I'm interfering with their life because I'm pushing a public health agenda. The backlash goes beyond just hate mail, Fauci said. It's also led to actual serious threats against him and his family. Serious threats against me, against my family, my daughters, my wife, the doctor said. I mean, really? Is this the United States of America? Fauci asserted that the attacks reflect the divisiveness of our society at a political level. This is a public health issue, the fundamental principles of public health, and I don't see how people can have animosity to that, he said. The doctor revealed that he and his family have been assigned security detail in response to the threats. In recent days, Trump and his administration have worked to undermine Fauci's credibility as the doctor's sobering analysis of COVID-19 clashes with Trump's politically motivated efforts to put a falsely positive spin on the outbreak ahead of the November elections. Trump's allies in right-wing media circles have also been attacking Fauci. As the pandemic has worsened, top administration officials have sought to undertake the tough but necessary work of discrediting Dr. Anthony Fauci, the country's leading public health official combating the coronavirus. As the longtime director of the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases, Fauci has spent much of the pandemic responding to COVID-19 case and hospitalization totals and issuing public health recommendations in response in an attempt to limit the spread of the disease. But over the past month, top Trump administration officials and the right-wing media have taken to pouncing on past and current statements of Fauci's, trying to cast him as perpetually wrong and fundamentally unreliable. The next subsection of this article is litigating masks. The attempts to discredit Fauci is spread around right-wing websites and come from the mouths of White House officials themselves, running the full gamut of the fever swamp ecosystem. But they all share a common misunderstanding that single errors or misinterpretations completely discredit the broader thrust of public health advice. And we're all paying a price for that right now. Take Mick Mulvaney's claim in a July 13th CNBC appearance that it was early hesitation on mask wearing which fatally damaged Fauci's credibility before President Trump. the same point made in an opposition sheet circulated by the White House. I know we're not quite to the discussion part yet, but that particular aspect of this just really upset me. Here you have Trump, who finally gave in to wearing a mask, less than a month ago, I think.
Right. Yeah.
And he actually visited a facility where they manufactured masks without a mask.
Mm-hmm.
And as a result of him doing that, they had to throw out the day's batch of masks because they could have been contaminated.
Yeah.
Wow. Continuing on with the article, I really admired Dr. Fauci, but I was also one of the persons he told to go on television and tell people not to wear a mask, Mulvaney said, before adding that it's tough when you don't have credibility to work with the President of the United States. Oh, yes, very tough, very tough. I think that's a fair concern to have. If you've been wrong a couple times, it makes somebody wonder if you're wrong again. That's only human nature. Well, gosh, let's see. We're at 18,000 lies verifiable and counting with our current president, I believe. Without litigating the mask wearing issue, it is hard to take Mulvaney's point seriously, given the months that Trump has refused to wear a mask. It also overlooks that we are still learning how the virus itself infects people. The recommendations that public health officials began to issue in February were based on far less than is known now. Consider early public health recommendations based on the virus infecting people from surfaces and via airborne transmission. So the bottom line to all this is between the Trump administration and far-right and right-wing media demanding that public health officials and Dr. Fauci in particular have all the answers right from the get-go, illustrates the major issue this country has, not understanding the scientific method. This lack of understanding has led to death threats against Dr. Fauci and his family. Where is the Fox News story on that?
Yeah.
So I'm anxious to hear your comments, Tim and Tracy.
Yeah. And again, you're right at the end when you mentioned that it's just not understanding how science works. And I remember, I mean, early on in February or even early March when it was coming out, you could read articles that were talking about the question whether masks would be beneficial for the general public just because they don't know how to wear masks and wearing masks properly. And then, but then as they learned how easy it is to spread, it was, they changed and said, it's important to wear masks no matter what. And even if you're maybe not wearing them exactly properly, it's still going to cut down on your exposure. So, and then just again, lay people not understanding that is how science works. As new information comes about, things change. What we believe today may change tomorrow, and then that confuses people. Think, well, they can't make up their mind. They can't make up their mind. Which is it? No mask, mask. So.
Yeah, I agree that they can't be wishy-washy on the subject. If Donald Trump, for instance, is going to finally say, yes, you should wear a mask, he should have a mask on his face.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, he still doesn't.
No.
It's very seldom you see him wearing one.
I've never seen him wear one.
I actually have seen a couple times that he did have one on. So in fairness, I will say I have seen him wear it, but certainly not anywhere to the extent that he should be wearing.
Right.
And I don't know. I'm trying to think if I've seen his family members wear it. Whether Jared or Ivanka. have worn them, or his wife. Yeah, I don't recall seeing her wearing one. So I mean, how simple, how simple of a solution is it? There was a, oh shoot, oh, that was in Kansas, right? This was a story on Rachel Maddow this past week. In Kansas, the governor was refusing to issue a statewide mandate for mask wearing. But she also said that she would not step in and prevent county by county decisions. So 10 out of Kansas's counties decided to go ahead and mandate masks. The remainder of the state didn't. And so voila, we had an instant experiment in place. Guess which counties had the fewer cases? By a rather large margin.
Yeah. Right.
The counties where we had mask mandates.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, it was so it's so black and white. It's incredible. Yeah. So yeah, just unbelievable the way this has been, and then to top it all off, to threaten somebody's family, somebody's life because they don't like a public health mandate. Are you kidding? Yeah, just incredible. So,
People are going crazy. Even my 13-year-old has noticed that the United States has kind of fallen off its pedestal some. He even asked me right after 4th of July, why did we celebrate Independence Day this year? Everybody's crazy. What are we celebrating right now? Kids are noticing.
The anti-maskers and anti-vaxxers, they're all out celebrating their independence. We will not conform. How dare you?
Right.
Well, and of course, this week Sturgis has been the big story.
Oh yeah.
Because there's I've seen a number of people saying, well, I expect in a couple of weeks to be able to pick up a couple cheap motorcycles.
Oh. Oh, that was bad. Funny. It was funny.
The one gathering didn't I read the one gathering had like 250,000 just at that one?
They were expecting 250,000. I don't know how many are showing up. Has that already happened? Has it happened already? They were talking
about it. It has happened. I've seen photos of of Sturgis, and it was jammed like it always is. At least if you can trust the photos that were posted, I suppose. Not having personally been there, I wouldn't know for absolute certainty that those photos were real or weren't from past years. But,
right.
But talking about riding to die or whatever they're
dying to ride. Yeah.
Right, yeah. Oh goodness.
Well, anyway, it's the old story of you can lead a horse to water, right?
Right. Exactly.
Anyway. All right. I think we'll go ahead and take another short break, and we'll be right back. Go ahead, Tim.
Tell me what it is about you that I
with more sounds reasonable. Can anyone name a victimless crime? Kind of a challenge, isn't it? Naming
Yeah,
a
that is.
victimless crime.
Yeah.
So you might think, well, perhaps some traffic violations might be examples, where there's really not a victim per se, but it is exceedingly difficult to come up with one. However, there was a recent description of violence in the most extreme form being carried out against an individual, quote unquote, guilty of such a crime. Tracy has the story. So, Tracy, what crime and punishment are we talking about?
All right. The story I am going to present to you today is called, it's from patheos.com, Adulation and Rose Petals for Teen Who Murdered a Blasphemer. This happened in Pakistan. Basically, there was a man who was facing a charge of blasphemy. He was a United States citizen, and he pretended to be a prophet, and that is considered blasphemy in Pakistan. And while this blasphemer was headed to court to face his charges, a 17-year-old Pakistani teenager, well, 17, he either brought a gun into court or was handed a gun by Pakistani police. He was somehow helped by the authorities, but he shot the blasphemer and killed him. And as a result, he was basically given a parade. They threw rose petals, and they pretty much rewarded him for killing the guy. The story reads this way. Pakistani teenager who shot dead alleged blasphemer Tahir Ahmad Nasim last week, and this actually came out August the 5th, is fast becoming a national hero, with even police posing for selfies with him. According to the report, as a 17-year-old teenager, identified only as Faisal alias Khalid, was being driven to a detention center on Monday, people showed up in large numbers, particularly attorneys, clamoring to represent him. Many were attempting to take photos. As they shouted slogans, they hurled rose petals at him. Nasim, an American citizen, was arrested 2 years ago on charges of blasphemy and was standing trial in a Peshawar court. Reacting to the image, Pakistani human rights activist Gulali Ismail tweeted, after lawyers taking selfies with the murderer of Tahir Ahmed Nasim, Peshawar police elite force also joined the bandwagon of making a celebrity out of a criminal involved in a first-degree murder over alleged blasphemy. She also used Twitter to say, many people are of the opinion that the murderer Faisal was either handed over the gun by police in the courtroom or police helped him take the gun inside the court. It's disappointing to see intolerance and violent religious extremism seeped into each and every institution of Pakistan. She pointed out not a single collective action announced by any political party or any civil society organization against the murder of Nasim. Instead, those who condemned the murder are reassuring people of their Islamic faith. She had earlier posted a tweet condemning lawyers clicking selfies of Khalid. Nasim had been in Peshawar police's custody since 2018 for having violated sections 295A, 295B, and 295C of the Pakistani Penal Code. He was facing charges for allegedly claiming to be a prophet, a violation of Pakistan's strict blasphemy laws that carry a death penalty. His murder was condemned by the U.S. Commission on International Freedom. Commissioner Johnny Moore said, Pakistan's blasphemy laws are indefensible to begin with, but it is outrageous beyond belief that the Pakistani government was incapable of keeping an individual from being murdered within a court of law for his faith, and a U.S. citizen nonetheless. Pakistan must protect religious minorities, including individuals accused of blasphemy, in order to prevent such unimaginable tragedies. The authorities must take immediate action to bring Mr. Nassim's killer to justice.
Wow.
So this teenager was basically turned into a hero for inside a court building murdering this man, which he was probably going to get the death penalty anyway. So I don't know really what the point was.
Have they mentioned any that they've filed any specific charges against the teen? Did they say anything about?
They didn't. I mean, he was arrested.
Right. So I suppose, I wonder, yeah, they'll charge him with murder, or will they just charge him with murder and let him go, or will they actually go to trial? That'll be interesting to see.
Yeah, I'm betting that there's not going to be anything that comes of this. There was a story a few years ago similar to this one, where a teacher from the United States who was in Saudi Arabia had named a teddy bear Muhammad. Well, that is considered to be a blasphemous event, and she was sentenced to 1,000 lashes. Now, fortunately, our consulate managed. We didn't have Trump then. So our consulate actually stepped in and stood up to the Saudis and said, "Look, we'll just get her out of the country for you."
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, Pakistan's not the only one that has laws like this. Hopefully our listeners understand what we meant by the introduction to this story of victimless crime. Well, blasphemy is indeed a victimless crime.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, our court system's not great, but,
I could see with, what they're seeing right now as far as the outpouring of support that the citizens are giving this guy, that if they're probably worried about the major backlash, there would be just charging him and taking him to trial. And so I think you're right, Brad. I could see that nothing would happen because they would be just worried about the backlash if they did try him for murder.
Sure. Yeah, that's exactly what they would get if they did that. And
definitely next time someone I know is arrested unjustly, I'm totally going to throw rose petals. I thought that was good. I mean, that's nice.
I wonder if being American
Not just for weddings anymore.
No. So I wonder if since the guy was American, if that had a little something to do with it too, but
right.
Maybe not.
Yeah, it's hard to know in that regard. That's probably. I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if this is not something that happens more frequently than we hear about. But we heard about it because it was an American involved.
Right.
Yeah,
True.
So I suspect that may be the case as well. But there are a lot of Muslim countries that have laws like. like also apostasy. So if you would leave the religion of Islam for another religion, that is also considered to be worthy of death, unless you can be proven to be insane.
Crazy about it. I couldn't help it.
Then you get an exception if you're proven to be insane. Well, of course, an insane person would leave Islam.
Right. Yes.
Oh man. Well, anyway, it is a crazy world out there. And speaking of that, we'll be right back with our crazy story of the week.
I'm feeling so hollow. Don't you know? And don't you know? I'm living in shadow. Don't you know? And don't you know? I fell for fool's gold. I fell for fool's gold. What did I know? What did I know? I fell for fool's gold. I fell for fool's gold. What did I know? What did I know? And you were fool's gold. Yes, I did. Yes, I did. Yes, I did. And I did it all for love. Yes, I did it all for love.
And we're back with our crazy story of the week. Karens, in quotes, are popping up everywhere, especially when it comes to wearing a mask for safety reasons in public. Tim has the story, so Tim, fill us in on this week's craziness.
Hey, thanks, Dr. Brad. This week's crazy story comes to us from, we've done one earlier from the site, god.daily.com, and is titled, Anti-Mask Karen Wants Half of the $100,000 that was donated to a barista she targeted. And I also pulled some information from an article on this story that came from the dailymail.com. So an anti-mask, quote, Karen from San Diego, California, inadvertently managed to get a Starbucks barista over $100,000 in tips via a GoFundMe campaign that was started for him after she posted a photo of him on Facebook saying he refused her service. Now, the quote, Karen wants a piece of the action. She told a local news station that she's looking to hire a lawyer to sue Lennon Gutierrez. I know I was going to butcher that. Gutierrez. Yeah, Gutierrez.
Gutierrez, I think.
Thank you. Yes, thank you. For half of the GoFundMe earnings because she believes herself to be the victim of the story. Quote, I've been discriminated against, she said. I'm the one who's sick. And now from what I've read, I would agree she is sick. She might be right there. So the anti-mask Karen is Amber Lynn Gillies, a yoga instructor, photographer, and also, believe it or not, a self-proclaimed anti-vaxxer. Hard to imagine.
Oh,
Hard to imagine that.
yeah, gosh,
On
incredible.
on June 22nd, she posted a photo of Lenny on Facebook, accusing him of refusing her service in spite of her allegedly having valid medical excuses. On Facebook, she posted, quote, "Meet Lenny from Starbucks who refuses to serve me because I'm not wearing a mask. Next time I will wait for the cops and bring medical exemption." The post, which has been deleted after drawing numerous negative comments directed toward her, inspired a stranger, Matt Cowan from Irvine, California, to launch a GoFundMe campaign in Lenin's, I guess, keep pronouncing it wrong, sorry, as a way of tipping him for his work. In an interview with ABC 10 News San Diego, Cohen said he launched the campaign titled "Tips for Lenin, Standing Up to a San Diego Karen." He never expected the outpouring of support that followed. Quote, I set it at $1,000 thinking that was a reach, but would be lucky if it hit like $250. And then it hit $100. I was overwhelmed by that. Cohen said that the campaign was flooded with donations, ending at a little over $105,000 total.
Wow, I wish a Karen had come to my house or something.
I know, right?
Yes, there appears to be plenty of them out there. So as donations rolled in, Lenin posted a video explaining his side of the story. He says he never purposely refused to serve her, but merely asked her if she had a mask, and was about to show her the official Starbucks guidelines on masks, mask use, when she reacted. She started calling people sheep and then left, he said. Within a few minutes, she came back and asked for my name. She took a photo of me and said, "I'm calling corporate," and started cussing, flipped him off, started cussing some more at everyone, and just left. He said he was overwhelmed with gratitude for the donations and said that he would use it to pursue his dream of becoming a dancer and donate some to charity. Now that might be more difficult, however, if Gillies gets her way. It was, quote, "It was discrimination, and everybody is okay with it, and enabling and rewarding the behavior," she claimed, as she talked to ABC News 10 San Diego. She also listed multiple health conditions she believes should exempt her from any and all mask rules. One of them, I get shortness of breath, dizziness, it messes with the heartbeat. And I do have asthma as well. And I do get mask acne. So there are several things going on, and not only that, but it doesn't even work, she claims. In addition, she claims to having breathing issues and acne, and like I mentioned, and then she showed ABC 10 News medical records from an ovarian cyst she had in 2015, which happens to be, I guess, a common issue among those with ovaries. And a note, she also showed him a note from her chiropractor. And, yes.
That seals it.
Yes. And the note said, "Amber has underlying breathing conditions," maybe it's bad breath, "that prevent her from wearing a mask or any type of facial covering whatsoever. Please contact me if you have any questions." So the local news, one of the local news networks, then contacted the chiropractor with questions, but surprisingly, he refused to answer any. Now, the New York Times reported that in an interview, Gillies said she wants at least half of all the proceeds from the online campaign because, quote, "because they're using me to get it." She continued, "They're using my name, they're using my face, and they're slandering me." Yeah. Gillies reported is reportedly speaking with lawyers. Oh, she also threatened Cohen that started the GoFundMe campaign, claiming defamation and slander. So again, like she mentioned, she's reportedly speaking to lawyers, but she found out that they're kind of expensive. So she's actually said she said she started a GoFundMe campaign for legal fees, but it seems no one can find this GoFundMe page that she started. Now, Starbucks released a statement standing behind the need to wear masks inside stores. We want everyone to feel welcome in our stores. They said in a statement to CBS 8 News, we respectfully request customers follow social distancing and safety protocols recommended by the public health officials, including wearing facial coverings when visiting our stores. And I think that's the governor mandated that, I believe, right? If I remember right.
Yeah, California, yeah.
California, right, in California. Okay, so now I was wondering about the tip thing, because if you guys have been to Starbucks, I'm not a frequent I don't participate frequently there or patron them, but they have like a tip jar, that you put in tips. So I was trying to find out, what's the deal with tipping there. And so what I could find came from employees. It says, they have the tip jar at each location, and then I guess they also have a virtual tip jar. And then what happens is you split what's in the tip jar with everyone. So management takes the tips weekly and divides them between employees based on the number of hours they work. And then in doing research, I found that I guess there was a big lawsuit a couple of years ago or a year ago because they were giving the tips to like managers, I think, as well, giving them a share, and some people, some supervisors and managers. So they lost that. They lost that lawsuit. But anyway, so the question goes, if it's going, if their tips are supposed to go in a tip jar and they're supposed to be shared. So my question is, does he have to share the GoFundMe tips with other employees that were working that day? So,
He probably should.
yeah, it'd be interesting. Again, when I was looking at the site, there was it was like a stream where one was talking about, well, how could I get tips personally get tips without having to share it? And they were giving suggestions. Well, they could, they couldn't do it inside. They could give you like an envelope with money in it on the outside or whatever. But anyway, so that's my crazy story. And it's one of the things I've been noticing with these crazy mass stories. There's a lot of Karens out there, but not seeing as many Kens. But we are seeing a lot of Karens. So every. What are
you trying to say?
I'm not saying anything. I'm just giving out some facts.
Tim said that. This might be Tim's last episode, folks.
Good thing Tracy's in Arkansas.
Tim, you better start that GoFundMe page right now, I think.
Oh. Now, don't prove my point, Tracy.
Oh, wow. You just wonder, if some of these people weren't dropped a few times when they were little, Yeah, I mean, how do you get to a mental state like that where you honestly believe that because of your abusive behavior, you deserve a share of the money that came in to cover the problem you caused?
Right.
That's crazy.
But anyway, that is crazy.
I'm not qualified.
Exactly. Tim, Tracy, thanks so much for your stories today. Well done. And I think that'll wrap us up for this week. Again, just a programming note. We'll be off next week. We'll be back August 23rd. If you have enjoyed our program, please pass the word to your friends and associates, believers and non-believers alike. Again, just a reminder that you are welcome to post questions and comments on our Facebook page. Remember, there is a big difference between having good reasons for what one accepts to be true and having bad ones. Incidentally, this is the only distinction one needs to become a strict atheist. This has been Dr. Brad for Tim and Tracy saying so long.
Yeah.